One of the things I'd like to talk about is the Press Act. The Press Act is a piece of legislation that's in the Senate right now. It passed unanimously in the House. And the Press Act is a federal shield law for reporters. It would allow them to protect confidential sources. And there are just very few exceptions, what I would call common sense exceptions for imminent violence or threats to critical infrastructure. And I've said that I think the protection of confidential sources is the hill to die on, because if you don't have that ability, a credible assurance that you're going to protect your source, as an investigative reporter, your toolbox is empty. I mean, you really have nothing to offer. And you know, and others, I can't say a lot about it, but I'm in the middle of a major case where I was asked to disclose confidential source information. I refused to disclose.
Who asked you to disclose it?
It's part of a Privacy Act lawsuit. I'm a witness in the case. And
so this is a private entity.
Mm-hmm. There's a plaintiff. They're suing government agencies, including the FBI. And they want to understand the source or sources for my reporting a series of stories, national security stories in 2017. And
this is all public. So just remind me, who's suing?
A Chinese-American scientist, and she's suing the FBI, the Justice Department, Defense Department, I believe Homeland Security as well. They're like 4 or 5 different agencies. Right. And the plaintiff wants to understand how I got information about her and her.
So you're
her
not
school.
being sued?
No, I'm not. I'm just a witness. Mm-hmm.
This just the same thing happened to me. They grabbed all my text messages. I was not named in the suit, but a judge said I had to divulge. So they're trying to violate, among other things, your privacy, but also they're trying to violate the protection that we all assumed was real, that confidential sources had.
I don't want to. I want to be very careful because I don't want to litigate, the case here. But the issue is the forced disclosure of confidential source information. And
so that means you as a reporter talk to people, they tell you stuff on the condition of anonymity. I'm not going to tell anybody that we spoke, but tell me the truth about what you know. Mm-hmm. Correct?
Right.
And this is something that journalists deal with constantly.
If you don't have that credible pledge of confidentiality as an investigative journalist, you really have very little to offer.
Yeah, I've done it like 3 times today already.
Wow.
No, but that's right. Your life. You know,
right.
You're talking to people constantly about stuff, but everyone knows you're not going to rat them out, right?
The question, it's in the appellate court right now in Washington. And the question is when the need for that information overrides the First Amendment and the reporter's privilege. I haven't lost a night's sleep over my decision to protect confidential sources. But that doesn't mean I don't feel a tremendous burden and responsibility with this case.
Tell us about the burden.
Well, it's so much bigger than just my individual case. It's not just about me. It's not about just a single series of stories. It's not about one media outlet. Whatever the courts decide, and I have respect for the legal process and what's unfolding. Whatever they decide is going to impact every working journalist in the United States.
Well, and the public.
And the public, and for the next generation. And that's why, the Press Act is an opportunity to really strengthen press freedom and press protections at a time, as you mentioned, that there's this explosion of smaller and independent outlets, and they can't withstand the legal and financial pressure.
Tell us about the financial pressures. Like, what does that look like?
Right now, I'm facing fines of $800 a day for refusing to disclose. That has been put on hold, and I'm grateful for that, pending the appeal in the court in Washington. But then there's the cost of litigating a case like this. This is not an inexpensive thing to do. I've been fortunate to have Fox News, which has mounted a very vigorous defense, an excellent legal team.
Because you worked at Fox at the time.
That's correct. I worked at Fox at the time. But not every outlet can afford to do that. And so having the Press Act would prevent them from being legally strangled in the future and losing that pledge of confidentiality. And if you believe, as I do, that an informed electorate and an engaged reporting core is fundamental to democracy, you're going to want to see this opportunity seized and really realized.
Well, if you think the public has a right to know what its government is doing, which is kind of the bottom line as far as I'm concerned, and I think the public does, the public has no idea what the government's doing. I can say that factually. No clue. They should know. And then you need to make sure the mechanisms exist for them to get that information. Correct? I mean,
yeah, I testified to Congress about this earlier in the year, and I just feel like we're at an inflection point. There's just this incredible shift in the media landscape. There's this sort of exciting, diverse group of new voices doing some really tremendous journalism. So this is the moment to me where you want to offer these kinds of protections for confidential source protection at the federal level so that it's consistent with what exists in almost every state in this country. And I think it's an acknowledgement of the role that journalism should play and can play in the democratic process.
Yeah, it can't, if you make it too expensive to tell the truth, nobody will. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where we are. I mean, you can take people out with lawsuits if you're some well-funded political group, particularly on the left. They've been doing this at scale. You shut people up by bankrupting them.
Well, one of our kids, as we were really wrestling with the subpoena and how that was all going to unfold, and there's a certain amount of, you can't keep your kids off their phones, right? So they're seeing sort of some of this play out. And one of our sons asked me, Mom, are you going to go to jail? Are we going to lose the house? Are we going to lose everything that you've worked for? And I wanted to tell him that in this country where we say we value, I get a little choked up when I think about it, but, in this country where we say we value democracy and we value a vigorous press, that it was impossible. But I couldn't offer him that assurance. And the best part of the story is how he ended it. He said, Mom, do what it takes. I've got your back. And I thought, if a teenager understands the importance of this pledge of confidentiality and understands the importance that journalism plays in a democracy, then certainly Congress can get this legislation passed. Right now it's in the Senate. Chuck Schumer has said he would like to get it to the president's desk this year, and I hope there'll be movement before the August recess.
Who's against it?
Oof. I think there are some Republican members who have hesitations about it. What I would say is that...
Well, because they hate the media.
I can't speak to their...
Well, I hate the media because they're liars, so you want to protect the truth tellers. I guess that would be my view of it.
I mean, I think the important thing to understand is that this is legislation that would do so much to protect these smaller and independent outlets where you have this diversity of voices. Period. On both sides of the aisle, left and on the right. And it's a moment when we can codify those protections. And it's a moment when we can say, we talk about the importance of the First Amendment, we talk about the importance of press freedom, and now we can actually really do something concrete to protect it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I do think the one thing that we can do is just not obey. I mean, I was told to give up my text messages. I never should have done that. I knew I shouldn't have done it. I should have just, they're going to throw you in jail. Go ahead. Come to my house, try it. And I never should have done that. And in a weak moment, I did it. I mean, clearly you're facing this right now. I caved. You haven't. Bless you. But I mean, what are you going to do if they command you to do it?
I mean, I just have to cross that bridge when we get to that. In the meantime, I've been so encouraged by how many media outlets have really filed briefs in support of our position, that they understand that it's a case that's going to impact everyone who's working today. And that's encouraging.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.